That was also sort of, the thinking behind why I would be a good coach, why I wanted to do coaching. I also managed communications in 22 countries for one brand, and that was also eye-opening. I mean, before I did it, I actually had to take a course on how you would be accepted in each country and how my management style meshed with each country's traditions, culture, and
Mm.
it was fascinating. It was fascinating.
Welcome to Success Leaves Clues, the podcast where we interview business owners on how they built their businesses and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is David Wynn, and I'm a business coach and the founder of Purple Circle, where we help business owners achieve their first 6-figure, 7-figure, and 8-figure year, all without sacrificing their quality of life. Before becoming a business coach and before founding Purple Circle, I started and scaled several 7- and 8-figure coaching businesses and have been a consultant at several businesses doing over $100 million each, including some that are publicly listed and doing over $1 billion each. In every episode of the podcast, you're going to learn lessons that took our guests years to learn, and you'll be able to learn that in minutes. No matter if you're a new business owner or an established business owner, every episode is going to give you the clues in order to elevate your business.
Welcome to Success Leaves Clues podcast. I'm Pedro, and today I'm joined by Janet Bartucci, a distinguished leadership architect and executive coach whose decades of high-stakes corporate experience advising C-suite executives through pivotal transitions at the Estee Lauder companies and Hill and Knowlton public relations gives her a rare insider's perspective on what it truly takes to lead at the highest levels. Janet has successfully launched 3 separate ventures while scaling corporate heights, and in 2025 pivoted to focus her communications consulting specifically on guiding female entrepreneurs and corporate leaders towards their highest potential. As a certified professional core energy coach and ELIMP, Janet utilizes the Energy Leadership Index to help professionals enhance their communication impact, master complex challenges, and lead with deep self-awareness. Her expertise spans everything from executive speech writing and media training to issues management and digital media strategy. Welcome to the show, Janet.
Thank you, Pedro. I'm so excited to share my coaching vision.
Okay, I'm excited to hear about your coaching vision. I love the way you framed it. Okay, and first of all, I love to go back to the origin story, rewind a bit, because every coach has that moment where they look at their life and say, yeah, I guess it's coaching now, right? So when was that for you?
Exactly. Well, I think you said it earlier that I have many, many years of corporate experiences. And going through that, you learn so much, and also life transitions. And I'm at an age when most people would say, well, why aren't you retiring? But when I look back at everything I've done, I thought, no, 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 it's really time to share and put all of that information and all of that experience to good use. And I've been through so many like good and bad, ups and downs, new businesses, corporate situations, life transitions that I can't sit back and let other people repeat some of the mistakes I've made or not let people learn from the things I've experienced, I've learned. So I just thought about it one day, and so many people said to me, "You should really be a coach." And I thought, "What's a coach? Why would I want to be a coach? Why, I'm a corporate bro. What would I do?" And then another client sent me a referral for a woman to coach, an Asian woman at a law firm. And she was an expert in mergers and acquisitions, knew it cold. But one of the partners took her aside and said, "If you don't get coaching, you will never make partner." And I thought, how cruel. This woman knows her stuff. But the fact of the matter is, she didn't know how to manage the conference room or the boardroom or conference calls. Her culture, her background kept her from really being that sort of aggressive personality, or, what I've come to term is leading with gravitas. She did not have that ownership of the room. But when I spoke to her and I realized where she was working, I thought, you know what? I'm not the person to coach her because there's a protocol that I don't have. And so that's what led me to go for my certification. That they always say that, I think Davis actually said this, that consultants spend all their time telling people what to do, but coaches ask all the questions. And I spent 50 years telling people what to do, but I'm finding that the ability to ask all the questions and bring the awareness up in people is what really makes it sustainable, because it's like trying to tell your kids what to do. They have to come to it themselves for it to make sense, for it to really stick. And so I have really spent the last couple of years turning this around into coaching, and I'm just passionate about it. You can't tell, I know. It's
Well, I can see the spark in your eyes. That's
yeah,
pretty easy to, notice. Now, there's one thing, right? You brought something that really it's very interesting. And there's a quote that says something like, if you say it, they doubt it. If they say it, they own it. Right.
that's
So
right.
it's part of an
Absolutely,
awakening process. You're like
absolutely,
helping,
absolutely.
guiding them through the answer, not necessarily just telling them. It's like my kids. You kind of nailed it. I have two boys here. Right.
Right.
So,
Yes,
dude, I
yes,
just told you to do X, Y, and Z. And they're like, right? What?
yeah, right,
But if you feel like, why are you doing this?
right.
What's the intention behind you're having this type of behavior? It's different. You can see the they're spinning their gears. They're trying to get to the
Yeah,
answer by themselves. So that's
right,
a lot of that is coaching. But no,
right.
I'm curious about one thing.
Yes.
You almost had an identity shift, to put it in a way, right? You're like many years in corporate, and then you move to coaching. So it's
Hmm.
like one of those birthday parties that you're like, Rebecca gets you kind of off guard and asks, hey, what do you do? And you're in that verge of coaching slash consultant slash corporate. So can you walk me through how that felt for you when you had to, you know what? I'm building a real business around coaching. You know that
Yes,
feeling?
yes, 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 I do, I do. And it wasn't quite an identity shift, because I've done change management, I've done corporate leadership, executive leadership, media training, all of that, where you have to use your intuition to work with people and understand how to read the room. But the process of becoming a coach was more difficult than I anticipated, because I am so used to putting my opinion out there. I'm so used to telling people what to do that I have to sit back and I have to let my intuition read the person, but not sit there and tell them what to do and not judge. Like, oh, that's the wrong thing. You've got to do this. I can't do that as a coach. But it's much more satisfying, because I think the connection is much greater with people. Like you said, when you tell your kids, they have to say it to own it. But it was, I think, almost everybody in the specific class I was taking felt the same thing, that it's a much more subtle, thoughtful process than
Mm.
necessarily being a consultant. There's formulas. As a consultant, I could write a communications plan in my sleep. I mean, I was doing it for so long. Even with crisis management, the steps are fairly standard. I mean,
Mm.
there's a protocol that you follow there, and I mean, it's got, talk about muscle memory, it's carved into my brain. But with coaching, I think each client is a little different, and each situation has its own unique sauce. And you have to be able to intuit what that is, and without judging. Yes, I mean, there's sort of a process that helps to set up a coaching interview, a successful one. But I think that it's harder after doing something for 50 years to suddenly turn around and do a 180,
Mm.
something a little different.
Okay. There's a movie, we were talking about awakening process and the coaching side of asking questions, right? And
Hmm.
guiding them. There's a movie that always hits my mind when we're talking about this. I'm not sure if you ever watched it. It's one from Christopher Nolan. It's called Inception, right? So it's a
Mm.
sci-fi movie. They go inside people's head and they plant an idea into the brain through their
Ah,
dreams, right?
yes,
So
yes.
the reason why it brings me back to coaching, it's because there is a moment in the movie that someone asks I don't know, Leonardo DiCaprio, one of the characters, right? Why don't you just make him do the thing? right? Why
Right,
don't you just force them? Why are you going through all of that? And then he kind of explains what we're talking about. You need to have part of it an awakening process so they can own the idea. And now if they own the idea, it's their own idea, so they're going to fight for it. You know what I mean?
right. Exactly. 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 And it becomes a like a gut reaction when people own it. You don't have to push them in that direction. One of the things that I do with core energy leadership is to understand there's 7 levels of energy, and it's really understanding where somebody is in that process, and maybe where the deficiency is, and how you can move them up a little bit to another, level of energy. And it's really interesting, especially when you're doing group coaching, to see when you talk about reading the room. You do an assessment with each individual as on the team, then you get an aggregate score, and you see like where the pockets are, where the deficiencies might be on the team, and how you can get them to understand how they can work together better. you know
Mm.
and because it's an aggregate score, you're not pointing the finger at somebody saying you're the loose link. You're the bad person on the team. It doesn't work that way. And I think that's so much more empowering. I used to manage, I built a team of 50 people when I was at the PR agency. And, those agencies are really high stress. They really power, 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 push, push, push. And I came to realize that not everybody is good at the same thing just because you're all at the same company and the same business. Everybody has a different strength. Some people are really creative, some are really good at new business, some are better at the administrative, some just want to sit back and write copy all day. And for me as a leader, the challenge was to manage into everybody's strengths. And that was much, much more successful. We tripled revenue in a couple of years. And it was just, it was in some ways a breakthrough, because you go to all these leadership classes and it tells you how to, relate to your team and talk to your team and blah, blah, blah. But the fact was, it was like being a conductor, in an orchestra. You have to find out what everybody is best at and what their best position is,
Mm.
and that was also sort of, the thinking behind why I would be a good coach, why I wanted to do coaching. I also managed communications in 22 countries for one brand. And that was also eye-opening. I mean, before I did it, I actually had to take a course on how you would be accepted in each country and how my management style meshed with each country's traditions, culture. And
Mm.
it was fascinating. It was fascinating.
I can only imagine. I mean, I
Loved it.
remember you brought something very interesting, which is like the cultural differences. And I mean, 22 countries, right? And I remember in Brazil
Hmm.
when I live in Brazil, if that's not what already established. But I remember when Walmart tried to join the market here in Brazil. It was hilarious, and the reason why it's hilarious, it's because they opened shop like some branches out here and there, and it have like football, American football gear. We don't play that here in Brazil.
Right.
Golf clubs, a lot of
Right.
stuff that were like American culture, and
Right.
they tanked hard. They had to laugh, Brazil. They were like, dude, that
Yeah.
didn't even had a chance. And it
Yeah.
was like
Yeah.
we all joke about that. So having to navigate that culture
Hmm.
differences, I can only imagine it helps with the coaching aspect too,
It,
right?
the intuitive aspect completely helps, and also the level playing field is not coming in with preconceived notions, not judging, why one country's better than another. But you try being a woman coming from the corporate office in New York, going to Japan and telling the
Mm.
team that their sales are down 40% and they have to change. That was not well received
Well,
at
facts
all.
are facts.
Facts are facts, but don't shoot the messenger. But it
Right.
took a lot of thinking and introspection to get that team to want to work with me and be
Hmm.
on my side. It's
Okay.
it's and that's the kind of experience I see going into coaching with women. My sweet spot would be women in business, women business owners, women in transitions, whether it's a personal or a lifestyle or professional transition, trying to find the next step. All of those things that I've done in the past have taught me different things. I left the workforce. I left a very successful job when I was in my, I guess, mid 50s and went back to work several years later. And you try getting a job at 58 as a woman. It's very difficult. And all of the transitions in there really taught me things, especially about the gravitas side of things. I really learned a lot there too.
Mhm.
And I have so much to tell other women and help them through that's part of a decision to go coaching also. And people always said to me, "Oh my God, you should do that. You should coach." But it's based on all of that
Okay.
I think I hate to see history repeat itself, and see
Mm.
women walk into the same landmines.
Interesting. Okay, let's pretend. I want to do a quick exercise with you here, Janet. Let's
Okay.
pretend I have a long distance cousin, okay?
Uh, uh,
That's Pedra. She's your ICP. She's a female entrepreneur, right?
uh-huh.
High achiever and all that. And first of all, how would Pedra be able to find you marketing wise?
Marketing wise, well, I'm on all of I do public speaking, I do podcasting, I'm on all of the social media. I've got my own website. Conscious Living Coaching is my website, janetbartucci.coach. I'm working on making myself pretty available and visible. Actually, my current business, the consulting business I have now, is completely word of mouth. I've had it for almost 10 years, and it's been all referral from my network, which is, I mean, gratifying beyond belief.
Mm.
And I'm trying to move a little bit past that and be more visible, but it has sustained the business for quite some time. I still have some of the same clients I started with 10 years ago.
Okay, so Pedra is out there. She listened to one of your podcasts,
Hmm.
looked at you at social media, looked at your website. She's like, okay, Janet sounds cool. Okay. We
Hmm.
can speed up the sales process. Let's say there's alignment. She reached out to you. She want to work with you. You
Hmm.
guys get into terms. It's happening. Okay.
Hmm.
So can you
Hmm.
walk me through how does that look like from her perspective, being
Sure.
onboarded in your practice, and what are the potentials? Sorry, what are the potential outcomes she can expect out of it?
Well, I think the first thing we have to establish is what is it that Pedra wants to talk about? What's lacking in her life? Why?
Sorry,
I
I
mean,
laugh because you were so serious about talking about Pedro for a second. Sorry, you can go ahead. She really exists. Go
well,
for it.
yes, okay, she does. What is her objective in going for coaching? Where does she want to be? And then what's keeping her from getting there? What's the gap in there between fulfillment and success? And what would she expect from me? It's not what I expect from her, it's what would she expect from a coach, and how can we get there? And then it's a series of, you know, discussions and questions. And, like we said before, it's me asking her the questions and helping her find awareness. I think unconsciously, what a coach might do is look at whether she's coming to the situation with, catabolic and anabolic energy. Catabolic is the destructive kind of holds you back. Anabolic, there's at least 5 levels of that pull you forward. So that's something we would have to assess is where is she on those? And everybody's a unique blend of all 7 levels and also anabolic and catabolic. How does she deal with stress? What does success look like? What's holding her back? What's her timeline? What else does she like to do? What are her values? What makes her excited in life? What does um, what does she do when she's not working? Somebody told me one time that I spend all my life either looking at the past or looking at the future, and I don't live today in the minute. And I thought, what? That's crazy. What did I mean? How can that not be? I'm here. But when I thought about it, she's right. I'm either living off my experience or building something for the future. And so I've made some conscious decisions to look at the present and be present more. And that's the kind of thing too that you look at with a client is where are they in that process? How far ahead do they want to go, or It's different than therapy, which spends more time looking at your past and saying, okay, what brought you to today? What makes you, this way today? Coaching would look at it and say, where do you want to be tomorrow? What's holding you back from what you think is success? And it's not being a mentor, because as a mentor, I'm saying, this is how I did it, so this is what you should do, and that's not what I want to do with people. Everybody's different. So I think it's helping people find those rays in their own life that help them either make decisions consciously, or, move forward to where they want to be, and understand where they are now. It's awareness raising. You know, when I was a kid, I played piano since I was about 6, and at one point everybody was talking about professional music school, and I was like, "Basta, no way!" I I did I did not want to do that. I completely shut down, and I come from a somewhat traditional Italian family, and the whole concept of a woman doing something in culture or fashion was, that's what you did. That's what you were supposed to do. I was the oldest and the only one to ever, go to college and all this kind of stuff. The first one, not the only one. But I realized that was the first real conscious decision I made in my life. Like, no, I don't want to do it because everybody's telling me I have to do it. And so many clients come to a situation because they have, you follow the prescribed pattern, or the American dream, or something like that, and it's not your dream.
Mm.
So it's finding out what your dream is and how you get there. And that's where I see the real value of coaching. And that's why I talk about conscious living. You know, I mean, I met my first husband when I was 16, dare I say, if you have 16-year-old boys. And then we got married, of course, because that's what you did, and I was divorced by the time I was 29. I realized by the time I was married 2 years, it was a mistake, you know, but divorce didn't exist in our culture, and, that kind of thing. But I finally woke up and I said, oh my God, I've got the rest of my life ahead of me. What am I doing? And that's another conscious decision, but that's another sense of people living by default, which I just think it takes awareness, and it takes maybe encouragement also to get to a point where a client can say, you know what, I want to do this, or I don't want to be this anymore. This is who I really am. I don't want to play piano. I want to go to business school. Um, it was a real conscious decision. Wasn't very popular, but uh, it's neither was divorce, but not
I
in the
can
slightest.
imagine.
Not in
Yeah.
the, well, I mean, yes. And then I married again, and that wasn't very popular either. um, but it worked. But I think, having some of that wisdom behind me helps make me a real empath for clients. And I think that's really important, to be able to understand where a client is coming from, but without judging, without telling them what to do, but helping them come to their own conclusion, I think is really. So Pedro should do that.
Okay. Okay.
Pedro should call me.
She should call you. Let me ask you this. Have you ever like had a client that joined you for a reason, and that evolved into something different? Like, oh, I want to do X, Y, and Z, and they're like evolving with the coaching. You're asking questions, and they're actually, okay, no, wait, that, I think I'm changing plans now. Did that ever happen?
Yeah, I think that's a natural outcome, because that's part of the awareness raising process. They come in with an assumption that they should be a certain thing or a certain person, and then they realize that's not who they really want to be. So they change. Uh, You know, I've had all different situations. I have a 40-something-year-old daughter, and so she has a lot of friends who have been professional, but during COVID, their careers were short-circuited, so they step back and they raise families and, whatever. And now it's how many years later, and they're looking around saying, what do I want to do? I, you know, so I've spoken to a few of them, and they come in and they're like, oh, I need to figure out, you know, working with and keeping my job that I have now. It's too high powered to leave, and raising my family, and how do I navigate everything? And then next thing I know, they're becoming a Pilates instructor, you know, because they suddenly realize they don't want that job anymore. Or, another one kind of went into the family business by default and realized, oh, I don't want to be in that business anymore, and went off in a completely different direction. So I think that's part of the coaching process, and it's not for me to tell someone that because they came in with this objective, that's where they have to land. I think it's the beauty of the evolution. It's the cycle that helps people come to a certain point, you know.
I like that. Now, I'm curious about one thing more on the tactical side, still talking about your business. Are we talking about mainly about a one-on-one coaching? Do you have a one-to-many component? How does that look like structure-wise?
I do both. I do one-to-one, many one-to-ones, individuals, and it's always confidential, and it's always, very discreet. But I also do group coaching. So I'm talking to somebody who has a team of 7 people, and I've been listening for 2 years about how dysfunctional these people are, this team.
They want to
So,
call you? Oh my God.
right,
No,
exactly.
thank you.
Well, I mean, I listen to all of the stories, and you start putting it together from an outsider's perspective. And what I proposed is that we do the energy leadership assessment on each one, including the person who heads up the whole leadership team, and then find out where each person is at. How do they react to stress? What's their strengths? What's their energy level? And then take those scores and do the aggregate that I mentioned earlier, and go in and coach the team on how to be a stronger team and how to support each other. And it goes back a little bit to what I was talking about before, when you try to you try to deal into everybody's strength. Nobody's the same. And so when you have an awareness of where people are, in the process, I think it helps you work together better. It makes more collaboration. You don't resent somebody. You don't, you don't bitch at them. You don't rip them out on, in a meeting, that kind of thing. It makes you much more sensitive. And again, because the score comes back when you're doing a group, you don't want to single out anybody. You want to
Mm.
make it a group dynamic. So I love doing that. I used to lead creative brainstormings, and I loved nothing more than getting up in front of a room with blank white pads and just throwing a concept out there and say, well, let's brainstorm how we can make this better, or let's look at this problem and say, what's the best creative approach? And you see the sparks going off in the room. And, as a facilitator, the skill is bringing it out of people, getting them to participate and sparking ideas and being able to throw connections out there. And it's all spontaneous. I mean, it's really you have to be quick on your feet. You have to like pain a little bit. There have been those rooms where everybody sits there looking at you like, what? But you know,
Okay,
but
but what
but it's
happens?
thrilling.
I'm curious about one thing. What
Yeah.
happens if that person, let's say that's Pedra, that's the leader of that team, okay? That's not your friend. She does the assessment as long as they do. They all come clean, the team, but Pedra's assessment is terrible. She's the problem. You realize your paying client, the one who reached out, is actually the leader,
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
obstacle. How do you
Yeah. Yeah.
navigate that?
That
Because that's a
that's
classic one.
Yeah, that's not uncommon. Absolutely. And I think then you want to do one-on-ones with Pedro. I think you have to go right to the source in that case. And there's something called a wheel of life. And that we have a lot of different tools that we can use with somebody like that, and help them come to the realization that if this is their objective, this is the area where we need to move forward on different she may be coming to work every day with catabolic energy because she's got problems at home or she is disillusioned with the policies. So how can we change that? You know, what's in her that we can change? So I think it's a question of individual coaching, but also group dynamics. If it starts at the top, that's where you have to focus right away, you know. And just because you do the group assessment, I don't think you stop right there. I think it should go on for, several months to make it really effective. You can't just throw it against the wall and hope it sticks. It's a process, you know. But it's very, very common for the problem to start with the leaders because that's how, you know, that's where people get the direction. Bad leaders cause all kinds of resentment on the rest of the team, cause resistance, and it builds up. It compounds itself. I've seen it way too many times.
It sounds like it did. Okay. Now
Yeah,
I want to shift gears for a second.
sure.
I want to talk about the future for your coaching practice. And I'm curious
Mm-hmm.
about where you're taking all this, Looking
Mm-hmm.
ahead, where do you see the business going, Janet? Are you thinking about scaling, hiring, or is there a next step you're excited about?
Well, this year, I mean, what I definitely want to have my first year go into the six figures for sure. I mean, I'm really looking to be aggressive about making this a full time. Long term, I want to be able to make more, work less, you know. As a consultant, you're on call 24/7 and it's grueling. I mean, I've done it. I love it. I'm passionate about that too, but I've done it too long and I want a different quality of life. So for me, coaching is that answer. I think I can manage to do that. In 5 years, Davis talks about being a pioneer, being a pacer, being the pilot. I want to be the passenger in 5 years. I want to be able to scale my business up so that it's self-supporting in 5 years. And, then I can sit back a little bit. But I
Mm,
see it as something where right now, you know, it's pretty full time right now. But I think I'd love to be able to set aside a day here and there where I'm not working, you know. But again, we're in the launch phase here, so um, it's a little bit more aggressive. But
okay.
again, if you're passionate about something and you love doing it, you're not working. So,
Mm, okay. Makes sense. Now, whenever we're aiming towards the next chapter, you mentioned you're in launching phase, right? There's
hmm
always something we're refining in the present. So, what are you currently trying to improve or tighten up in your business right now, Janet?
right now for me, it's what's the most effective lead generation for me. As I mentioned, my consulting business has been built completely word of mouth, but people know me as a consultant. So not sure that same stream works as a coach because what happens is people come to me for one-on-one coaching expecting me to really tell them what to do. So defeats the purpose. I want to be seen as a coach. So I'm trying to refine that process of building my reputation and awareness as a coach, not a consultant. And then how do I attract clients that way? So, and I'm like I said, I'm bi-coastal, so I've got clients across the country. But
Okay.
that's
Now,
that's that's the critical factor right now for me.
right. Now, I know it hasn't been a lot of time that you've been a coach. We're talking about a year, right? Sort of the
hmm
certification 6 months ago and all
hmm
that. But I understand there's always something to learn. Okay. So I
hmm
want you to pretend we have a time machine in front of you. Okay. In that
hmm
time machine, you can go
hmm
back to the day you started coaching.
hmm
Okay. That you haven't, you can give one piece of a business advice for that coach, that Janet, that you know now that you didn't knew back in 1 year ago, around something like that, what would that be?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, if it's a question about coaching, that's one thing. If you're asking me about running a business, that's another thing. Because there I have a lot of, like I said,
Mm.
this is my third business.
Well,
So
you could
the
pick. You could pick whatever you feel like is the most important
you
for
know what? I
past
think
Janet to know.
one of the most important things as a business owner, and especially if you're switching like I am from one to another, I think one of the most important things to keep in mind is learn to say no. Understand which are the wrong clients for you, because that is going to take more energy from productive growth than anything. If you get the wrong clients, the reviews won't be good because you won't be able to do anything. The word of mouth dies, or reviews go up on Reddit or Yelp or something like that, and it doesn't do you any good. So as much as you might want the business, I am trying to be very selective about who I take on as clients, with the fact, with the idea in mind that I'm looking for the right type of clients to coach, not
Right.
consult. you know.
Right. There has to be alignment. I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if someone listening wants to connect with you or follow your work, Janet, and we're going to have all the links in the description, okay? But what's the
hmm
best way to find you, the coach, not the
Yeah.
consultant, and
The
connect with
coach.
you?
Well, LinkedIn is always a good one. My LinkedIn site is now about coaching, and I'll be posting there. I'm also Entreprenista is a global women's business owners organization. I'm an expert on Entreprenista, so I'm quite visible there. You can find me there as Janet Bartucci. And then, of course, my website, Conscious Living Coaching with Janet Bartucci, is a good way to find out what I do. And that would be janetbartucci.com, janetbartucci.coach. Sorry.
JanetBartucci.coach,
Right.
Bartucci for those
That's
who are
correct.
listening.
Yes.
So you know what, Janet, there were a few moments from this chat really stood out to me. I'm going to highlight a few, okay?
Sure. Sure.
When we were talking about the origin story, right? And the entire language you use, like I don't repeat the same mistakes I made, even the target audience, right? Serving female entrepreneurs. In a way, it really feels to me that you're serving past Janet. You know, you
Mm,
want to avoid the same gals going through the same stuff you had, so you have those shortcuts. You have ways to avoid those pitfalls because you've been there, done that.
mm-hmm.
You had
Mm-hmm.
skin in the game. It's
Mm-hmm.
not easy. It's a
Right.
struggle,
Right.
but you're there to guide them through it. So
Well,
that's pretty cool.
to raise awareness of how to go with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's funny also to talk with you and the ways you're so aware of, to for example, I used to tell people my opinion, right, and
Mm-hmm.
tell them what to do, and sometimes they expect that, but that's not who I am anymore, or
Mm-hmm.
I need to hold myself back of doing that. I'm in a different path right now, and you're so aware of who you are right now
Yes.
and where you want to go. So kudos to you on that. Pretty cool to
Thank you.
watch. Okay. Now, Janet, this is just my long-winded way of saying that I appreciate what you do, okay? And I appreciate you being here and sharing so openly today with us. It was great having you on.
It was terrific speaking with you. Every time I speak about coaching, I learn more.
That's it for this episode. This episode, as well as this podcast, was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help business owners elevate their business to 6, 7, and 8-figure years, all without burning out. If you're looking to grow your business, as well as get the time freedom that you are looking for, visit us at joinpurplecircle.com and see what we can do to help you and your business.